Okay. Yeah, okay. Okay, it looks like it's recording. So for anyone watching the recording, we're running through the libp2p Q4 OKR draft. We're just initially talking about the overall project goals, and then we're going to talk about how those would feed into the language goals or interact with them. So I'm up to number 4, which is a product goal, getting more downstreams. And then number 5 is I kind of broadly call it like the marketing goal. That basically this came out of Juan and I had a discussion in the last quarter about how some of the events that we were hosting, like Lab Day and the DWeb Summit, they took a lot of time, but they weren't ever reflected in the OKRs. And so his thought was that's probably a bug in the OKRs. So I want to try to budget time for that this quarter. So I just have basically 2 categories. Well, I have several events that we should just assume like there'll be some situation will arise where we need to do another lab day, or need to do is the wrong way to put it. We have an opportunity to do another lab day, and we think it would benefit the project. I have some goals around the team week, and I have some goals around I'll take this one. I think Michael needs some help planning. I forget what he's calling it right now, but it's like IPFS week. It's something that's going to happen in the spring of next year, but I don't know quite what he needs. But I figure, all right, let's try to give him some support. There'll be one libp2p day. Then the rest of them are documentation goals. Like, we really need to do something about docs. The whole thing's such a disaster. It's really hard for anyone to understand how this system works, or even how to use it. And we have a lot of content, like examples, but there's no entry point to them. And so I don't know. We need to do something on this. I haven't figured out yet exactly how to handle it. Anyway, so those are the 5 goals at the project level. Do we want to talk about those? Don't raise your hand because I can't see anyone.
I have a suggestion.
Yes.
About documentation. I think that documentation is in the marketing section is already a symptom of how we treat documentation. And if we want good documentation, needs to be a first-class citizen of our processes and how we work on this stuff. And so should probably be up there in quality and dependability. And should maybe think about something like, if there's a new feature and it's not properly documented, then it's not ready to ship. Stuff like that. Just like if something is not tested, then, or doesn't have tests, then it's not ready to ship.
That's a good point.
Also the broken windows effect, right? So there's not a lot of documentation, so people feel it's fine to ship even more stuff without documentation.
I find that to be a pretty convincing argument. I think you're right. I think we need to give some basic framework for where to put your documentation for different types of things. And then by the way, I'm fine moving it into number 2. I actually think that's a good idea, because I do think it's a huge quality issue. I think
Mike,
yes.
Just one thing. I think that at least for the team's perspective, when we implement an OKR, the OKR should be only finalized if we add the proper documentation as well. And it would, at least for new features, it would immediately decrease that problem, but we would have to work in the old ones.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think we just sort of have to reach an agreement to do that. Like, I think, and what I think what Lars is saying is, since we haven't been doing that in the past, it's like people assume it's not necessary now.
Yeah. So I completely agree with the sentiment, and particularly there are many kinds of documentation, which is why I think we need to make it an objective to create structure around the documentation, right? Because it could mean different things to everybody watching this. or participating. So I think we need we need definitely to keep the specs up to date. We need some kind of user manual in some way. Like, it's hard to define user manual in a framework that is so deep in the stack, right? But some user-oriented, geared sort of like documentation. We need to make sure that, you know, code is as well properly documented, get some standards if it's possible, and outline, you know, some sort of like requirements there. Even potentially have like GitHub bots that check for, you know, levels of documentation whenever a PR is submitted. Like, maybe automate some of this process. Maybe have a checklist, a bot that, you know, pushes a checklist on every PR that the submitter needs to check to ensure that, you know, if this PR needs to update the specs, then that's done. If it needs to update the user manual, then that's done, and so on. So something that brings you to a bit more conscious, you know, effort when it comes to code versus how code goes together with documentation.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Oh yeah, go ahead, Lars.
Yeah, one very easy way to get started is to just take the IPFS documentation website and duplicate it, docs.libp2p.io. It even has build automation, so whenever you make a pull request or push to master, it gets rendered and added to IPFS, and DNS gets updated, and then you have something to start from. Yeah, it even pulls in API documentation for JS and Go packages. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Oh, I think this is a really good idea. I mean, just to duplicate this structure, and then I see. Okay, so
Yep.
when you open a PR, like to make a code change or something, then what do you open a corresponding PR in Docs, or it's somehow you just add Docs as part of your initial PR? Where is this fed from?
There's not much practice around it yet. So it's also just at the very starting point. It's very far from where it should be. But yeah.
Okay, I think it's a promising idea. Let me try. So let me ask a question first. Do people agree that we should move documentation under number 2, the quality and dependability, or does it deserve its own objective, or does no one care?
I think it goes under quality, as people have suggested. Today in my conversations with the Ethereum Foundation, this very same topic came up, and like, they are having a really hard, they want to use the P2P, but they're having a very hard time wrapping their head around some of the concepts. So, and they need to fall back into code every time, right? This creates kind of like a vicious cycle, because there's no feedback to us that the documentation is crappy, therefore we don't work on it. So I think it's good that we're short-circuiting that here and putting it into quality.
Yeah, whenever I talk to users, this is the #1 thing. Like, literally everybody who tries to use libp2p, even people who are using it successfully, mention this. And I also know the Rust team, like this, they tried to implement from the specs repo, but it's not detailed enough, so they ended up using like the Go code as de facto spec. So like that's a broken thing too. So I just after the call, I'll try to think of a way to structure this a little better, but I think we've got some documentation goal that's like create an overall structure to make it normal for each PR to add corresponding docs, e.g. So I think we need something like that as a first step, and then, yeah. Anyone else have any more thoughts on this?
So that's
just
that's
very
great.
quick.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Lars.
Yeah, just very quick thing. I'd really suggest to make it a separate website, just like docs.ipfs.io. Just because everybody has a lot to say and bike shed about the project website, and being separate gave a lot of freedom and agility to docs.ipfs.io. And yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. The goals that I have for libp2p.io are actually like Well, some of these, so yeah. Well, on this one in particular, like this has been something. Oh, I see. You want to rename this? Yeah. Okay. My worry is like if people want to find out about libp2p, they're going to go to libp2p.io and they're going to look for a link that's like docs or how-tos or something like that. But we don't have to put the exact full content on that site. I just think we should give them some kind of trail to follow.
Yeah, definitely. The thinking there in the beginning was just that all our project websites seem to be very focused about on just giving a great first impression of the thing, but not very geared towards well, educating people and being good for text content and all that. So there's a lot of pointless animations and all that, and yeah, just two different types of what you want to achieve with a website.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. It is intentionally very high level. Okay, that seems reasonable.
Yeah, so ideally, what I think is that ideally the libp2p website should be cross-linked with the docs. So if you are defining, stream, if you're defining transports, if you're defining multiplexes or whatever, there's kind of like a headline, right? And then read more about this link. That sends you to the docs.
Absolutely agree.
Something like this phrasing, could this work? Like just we just agree that the libp2p IO site points you in the direction of docs, but maybe we don't actually want the docs on the website.
Yes.
Hey, sorry, was someone saying? Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. While we're on this topic, do you all think that we should attempt to hire someone to write, like, let's say money's no object or whatever, does it make more sense to hire someone to try to write docs for all the stuff we don't have documentation for now? Or do you think that higher quality docs will come if engineers themselves? Yeah, Stephen. Oh,
you're muted.
I couldn't tell if you were raising your hand. Yeah, I think you were raising your hand, but you're muted. Unmute. Oh yeah, I can't unmute you. Okay. I don't know why. Yeah. Okay, wait. Let's give Stephen a minute. But
can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So for specs and stuff like that, I think it'd be better if we write them, because they tend to be fairly technical, and actually getting other people to get to the point where they understand them will take more of our time than just writing them ourselves. Especially if we're just willing to write something that's very minimal, like, hey, this is how this works. If once it gets polished, we can then hire people to come in after the fact, look at these basic specs and rewrite them and make them nice. But I think it'd be easiest if we just say, look, you over here, write this, or I don't know, people, we can all just volunteer for different specs and say, I'll write this, I'll write up how ping works, I'll write up how the DHT works, whatever, and then just get something down. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
It's also a great way to get people on board and learning how these different pieces work.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. Does anyone else have any perspective on this?
Yeah, so I think we've actually gotten on the JS side of things, we've gotten a few requests lately for how does this module work? How does this integrate with libp2p? So I think, as Stephen kind of mentioned, even the intro stuff for libp2p is it's a steep learning curve unless you're familiar with it already. And so I think making sure that we at least have that baseline in place, so then somebody could come in after that and then enhance documentation from there and clarify things.
Okay.
We may also be able to allocate a session at Lab Week to just doing this, but that may be
that would be a great activity. Yeah. Yeah, actually, I think that's a really good idea, because it would be it could potentially be a fun kind of group activity, and also everyone involved would be able to see, if we whiteboarded out exactly how the DHT works, and then people could ask questions in real time, and then, yeah.
I think it may actually better to have everyone sort of
do their own subsystems so they can actually write down. It's almost like if you have everyone working on the same thing, you tend to end up with a whiteboard but no actual like text written. So like it'd be better like if we have everyone like sit down and write and then ask each other questions, if that makes any sense. But that may not be the best way to do it. I don't know. But like either alone or in pairs. I don't know if like doing it as a group is necessarily the right way to do it.
Yeah, no, I see your point. I guess the thing I care about most is that people create documentation, but then we come back together somehow as a group, and there's an opportunity to explain it, and then have people ask questions.
Well, ideally, the documentation is sufficient. The problem is like if you have that looming in your head, like well, people can just ask questions, then I'm worried the documentation wouldn't include all the sufficient information. But maybe that's not an issue.
Yeah, no, I see what you. I mean, I think what you're saying is ideal documentation would be sufficient that anyone who reads it would have the proper level of knowledge. It
depends on whether or not our desired outcome is like shared knowledge or documentation or specs.
I think for Team Week, the desired outcome is like shared knowledge. And then after that, we can come back and have someone, maybe a contractor, someone we hire who could clean it up. Does that, what do you think about that as a goal?
Well, but that still means that our desired outcome from that session would be to have something written down, like some form of like document that someone else could understand. They could they could ask questions, but it has to be enough that like they don't have to like ask so many questions that you might as well write it yourself again. That makes sense.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
But yeah, I mean, like we should definitely present to each other. I just want to make sure that like the goal of that session would be writing down like a thorough description, even if it's not like well written at all or easy to follow. As long as it's thorough, includes all the information, or well enough information for someone to start implementing it, then I think that's good. But
yeah, I think that was what I was trying to get at. The idea that maybe it's not perfectly written the first time, but it has the basic information.
Yeah.
So I do want to say in previous companies, we did have a technical writer and the documentation output from a technical writer, and the fact that, they are somewhat abstracted away from the project and they're starting from scratch and they have literally no idea when they come into the project really helps. Like it's a different level of presentation, right? Because if we write documentation ourselves, we all have some level of knowledge and we make assumptions, right? So they are pretty targeted to that.
Yeah, that's what I've also experienced in previous companies. So now I'm trying to think, because there is something to be said for they come in and ask all the obvious questions that the people who are going to write this stuff won't think of. I mean, because the questions that are things that are obvious to engineers won't get written, but things that a fresh pair of eyes will see do get written.
But that depends what we're trying to write up. So if we're trying to write up like how to use libp2p, yes. If we're trying to write up specs like how to implement libp2p, I'm not sure if the technical writer for the first pass is the right way to go.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's what I meant. I think specs should be written by engineers that deeply know the current behavior of the system, right? And when it comes to translating those specs into like actual user guides and so on, I think that it would be great to have a technical writer do it, because they can like channel it for people who have no idea what they're seeing in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, I'm taking some notes here on paper. I'll put this in the repo or for the Team Week stuff. But anyone else have any thoughts on this? Oh, okay. Okay, I'll try to put this up in the repo, and then people can comment if I didn't capture it quite right. So let's see here. As usual, the Zoom controls are in the way. Okay. Any other thoughts on the basic structure of this, the overall page, or the goal, or the validity of these goals, or they making sense, etc. Okay, so I'll take that as these goals seem basically plausible as Q4 goals. A lot of them were carried over from Q3, so I think we're pretty like I didn't add a lot of new stuff. Mostly the new stuff I added was docs and the Ethereum 2.0 and this event stuff that Juan felt probably should have been in the Q3. So now let me pose a question to the group. How do we want to do the Go, JS, and Rust? How do we want to tackle that? Like async, or should we talk about it now? Yeah, Stephen.
We've been doing the GoFS ones async. The key factor there is like getting, like, people actually have to like contribute, and they have to like figure out what they want to do. So it just takes more drive, I guess. Discussing them in person does allow people to like figure out, like, I don't know, really quickly, like, okay, I want to do this, you want to do this, I need this, who wants to do it, stuff like that.
Okay. That
didn't actually come to an conclusion though.
Well, what I think you're advocating for is async. In general, I'm a fan of async, but I feel like in the previous OKR process, like the last time we did this, I feel like it didn't work. Like people just didn't really engage, and then we forced everyone to sit in the same room at a table in Berlin, and only then were people willing to like really engage on it. So that's sort of my concern. Yeah, go ahead, Jacob.
So I think one of the things that I'd like to see longer term is like we've gotten better at like getting the OKRs. Like we're actually talking about them before Q4 is starting, which is great. But so in JS, we do it async. We have the Git PR. I think most people are tagged, but if not, I'll just throw that in chat. So we basically go in, and each of us on there, so like Vashko and I are assigned to that, and we go through there and what are the things that we want to accomplish. And this is going through looking at the open tickets that we have on the waffle board, big items carry over from Q3. We look at that and we write up what are the things that we individually think need to be done, not that we're going to do ourselves, but that we think need to get done for it. And then we can have that discussion of who should be working on what, how much can we actually bite off, and we turn that into the OKRs. One thing that I think would be great, that if we had these for Go and Rust and we're able to have those conversations, that we could then start cross-collaborating of, are there dependencies that we need on one for the other? Like, is there something we need to get done? We know in JS, one of the big things is like we'd like to get NAT traversal going, but the spec isn't quite there. So what can we do to cross-collaborate to get this spec done so that maybe we don't do NAT traversal this quarter, but it's something we could tackle in Q1 because we should have a spec for that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. In general, I think well, I only have 1 quarter worth of data, but it seems to me that JS has consistently, meaning 1 quarter, done the best job, like been the most organized about this, like doing it on time, scoring on time and stuff. So it seems like you guys have a good process. With the Go team, I don't know, maybe it's just because it's smaller. I'm not sure, but it seems like that's where we struggled more. I think it's smaller in there, and it has a lot of people who are only partly working on it, so they have other responsibilities.
Well, at this point, I think it's larger actually, but in the past, it was always smaller.
Yeah. That's a good point, actually.
Yeah, so particularly, I'm personally intrigued to see how this is going to go. Being a new join, a new hire, I really like the way that you guys have been discussing in JS libp2p. I think everybody gets to basically justify why a piece of work that they want to work on needs to be done, which is great, right? So writing a little blurb and so on, so that it gets the discussion going. I think we should approach it in the same manner and go libp2p. I'm completely up for this. I think the discussion there is really constructive. What I'm a bit worried about is that at the end of the day, these two projects are kind of diverging a little bit because we are discussing in our own little islands. So one of the things that I set up for myself, I don't know what people think about this, is to sort of like in this quarter so right now in the website, we have a list of all the modules, and we have matrices of all the modules across the different implementations. But I would like to do a feature drill down as well. So I think we need to get to a feature breakdown to understand what each implementation actually offers in kind of like a dashboard fashion and kind of like a feature matrix or something like that we can then spot what the differences are across these implementations so we can take decisions of. And this will sort of like feed back into the specs work as well, because I guess the spec is going to be for each of these modules is going to be like a common baseline of all the supported features, or maybe we realize that we want a feature that is only present in one particular implementation to be part of the spec. Therefore, the other implementations, the ones that do not implement it, will need to level up to that. I don't know. What do you guys think? Would this be useful?
So we have, I don't know if you've seen the version of that IPFS has. I don't know if we've started adding that, but it's basically, it's the chart that here's the feature set and here's like, it's like the tomato, lemon, apple color code of where those feature sets are. I'm trying to look for it.
Yeah, it's in the root directory. It's called the Roadmap to 1.0. I started doing one for us for libp2p. I just called it requirement. It might be renamed to requirements. But you're talking about this, right?
Yeah, right. So is that okay? So the thing I would like ideally we would get a bit deeper and go down to the feature level for each of these things, because of course, like implementing let's say the switch or implementing UPnP, it could have different characteristics in each of the implementations. There could be different smaller features that are supported, maybe timeouts, maybe something related to reliability, something like, in terms of threading or whatever, that might be different across implementations. And maybe it would be useful to do this feature breakdown to understand how the differences, like a single transport, a single module, how it differs across implementations.
Yeah, so I have a comment on this. Two things. First, I just cut and pasted this out of IPFS and moved it into libp2p. So I gave Rust like red for almost everything. So like I don't think this is accurate. So the first thing is accuracy of this. Then the second thing is what Raul's getting at, which is granularity. Like, do we want to take something like switch and I don't know, have some sub rows or whatever that talk about specific features of the switch and whether they're implemented in the different languages or not. And but so this is what we have now. It's just a start. It's not where it needs to be. Other thoughts?
If I can say a word about this kind of table, like it just says my internet connection is unstable. I don't know if you can hear me. Yes.
You're cutting in and out of it.
My internet shouldn't be unstable. But yes, if you can hear me, just what I want to say is on the Rust side, we would be fine for updating this kind of documentation, but we don't know where it is, or I don't know. So like either someone should come to us and ask us to update this, provide a link to it, or I don't know exactly, but we don't know what to do if we need to update documentation.
Yeah, that's my fault. Basically, I haven't put a lot of time into this, but my plan had been to open an issue in Rust libp2p, just being like, hey, can you bring this up to date? So for now, I just went, but I'm not convinced that this structuring is the right way to do it. So I didn't want to waste your time. I'm not trying to make Rust look bad or something, but I didn't want to waste your time yet until we have a structure we feel better about. I don't know. Other reactions to like this thing needs a lot of work. I think to become something that's legitimately useful to track the progress of the project.
Well, so because I know one of the things that we want to tackle is interop tests with those, and that's something that I think should be like housed and or generated by that, so that you go to the interop test repo if you want to see what are the differences between Go and JS and Rust, and we can see it's either generated or whatever that looks like, whether it's even just static README, that we can see that there and know, okay, here's a feature breakdown, here's where it doesn't work, these are known test failures, things like that.
Yeah, Stephen.
Actually, I knew I'd seen it somewhere. If you go to libp2p.io/implementations, there's something kind of like this. It's much prettier.
Yeah, that's true also. And we just added Rust to this. Someone from Parody did it, so I think it's probably more accurate than. Yeah, I'm thinking about what you're saying, Jacob. By the way, I'm just looking at the chat right now. I agree with Lars that tomato's the wrong thing. It looks like it looks bad or something as opposed to just absent. But I think we could figure that out.
Yeah, it was just a spontaneous thought. That's why I didn't speak it and only wrote it.
So the thing that I'm thinking about maybe is, so it's a bit difficult to express in words what I'm thinking about. I think it would be easier to just do it maybe for one particular module, to do the cross-examination for, let's say, the connection manager, for example, which we know has differences between Go and libp2p because we've seen them, right? And sort of like drill down into the connection manager and spot out what the differences are, what the features are, and how they are implemented across, the different the different languages. And sort of like maybe I do this for 1 or 2 modules and present back to the team to see if it makes sense to continue doing or if it doesn't bring any value.
Yeah, I think that would help. I've talked to you about this idea in the past, and I think I understand what you're saying, but I don't have a complete picture, and so maybe other people are in the same boat. And I think if you did it even for just one module, it might help a little bit.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, so just to bring this back to the OKR discussion, so is the consensus here that Go? Well, okay. I'll just say the idea I like best. I think Raul is the one who proposed it. That Go should open an issue in parallel, like basically the same as that JS issue, of what people want to do this quarter, and there can be discussion in there as there is in the JS issue, and then that would eventually flow into this document. But we're not iterating in this document. We're discussing in the community. Do people generally support that approach? Okay, cool. Good, thumbs up. Pierre, for Rust, what do you guys think? I know you have a lot of Polkadot work, and I want to try to get more people who are not busy on Polkadot to build things, but I don't know. What do you think is the right approach for Rust?
So like the problem with Rust is that the Rust team is basically Toralf and me, and we are in the same room every single day. So like all these things with OKRs, and I mean it's a bit it's very administrative compared to what we're doing. You see what I mean? Administrative is not the word, but it's just so much
like
easier.
Bureaucracy. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Mm-hmm. And
bureaucracy? I don't know. Unnecessary.
Yeah, I mean, I understand. Of course, there's a need if you want to bring more people to the project, but it's so much easier to just say, hey, what do you think about that? We should do this, we should do that, compared to like going to group sheets and everything. Like right now, so I already talked about this in previous meetings. Like right now, we realized that the needs that we have for substrate are a bit different from the way we design recipe. So we've been reworking a bit this. So the problem, therefore, is that writing documentation and stuff like that is not a priority. Like we first need to figure out correctly. There's always trade-off between low level and performance and easy to use on the other side. And we are trying to find the right balance right now. And once that's done, we will go through a cleanup path and define proper objectives, I think. That's for sure. But for now, it's too messy. That's basically the problem I have. I don't know what your opinion is.
Yeah, no, I completely understand the position you guys are in. I've talked to Juan about this a little bit, and it's not in the context of Rust. And one of the things that we were talking about is like there's a certain level of efficiency that you have when everyone's in the same office that you can't have when people are distributed, and but the benefit of distributed is anyone in the world can contribute. And so his perspective is let's tolerate the inefficiency so that we can have more contributors. Now that said, I don't want to like waste your guys' time doing a bunch of busy work that or work that is too ill-defined to even specify right now. So I'm not sure what the right answer is.
Like right now, the object, like I started fitting the objective. Actually, I just put it could be approach and academia only node in the IPFS network because I discussed this with someone. I don't remember who. Maybe it was Why Are You Sleeping? I'm not sure if it was him. But like that's what I have in my head right now. As I said, documentation is unfortunately something we will do after we have figured out the whole architecture properly. If someone has another idea, of course, shipping software with P2P, that's going to happen anyway. So it's not really an objective; it's happening only. Like fixing bugs, I could put fixing bugs, but not really an objective.
I actually don't think that's an unreasonable objective. I mean, we'd call it something like improved quality, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad objective. It does get a little hard to measure because bugs just come up out of nowhere. I mean, if you knew in advance what all the bugs were, you just wouldn't have made the mistake in the first place. So, I don't know. Well, okay, so I feel like Rust is maybe a little bit of a special case, and I'm not quite sure how to handle it. And maybe it's not something we can resolve on this call. By the way, I loved this one. I don't know did you write this, Pierre, or a non-advanced Rust user should be able to understand in an hour?
Yeah, because that's something that's not the case now.
Yeah. Well, I think you dropped out, but anyway, yeah, thumbs up on that. Okay, well, it sounds to me like at least the tab's got misordered. It sounds to me like at least Go and JS know the direction they need to go. So who wants to open an issue on Go libp2p mirroring the JS issue? Yeah. Okay, Raul, you'll do that. Okay.
Already, I think there is already one PR that David created for Go.
Oh, okay. I didn't see that. Okay. What? Can you link it in the chat?
Yes, I will leave in the chat.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so beyond opening that issue and then discussing it over there, is there anything else that people want to discuss right now? Otherwise, we should just give back the time.
I already left the PR in the comments.
Okay, yeah, okay, perfect. 425. Okay, nice, nice. Okay, cool. Okay, yeah. So let's try to move the Go discussion over to here, and yeah, I don't see anybody raising their hand, so I'm going to assume this people are comfortable with ending the meeting now. Okay, I see a thumbs up, at least one thumbs up. Okay. All right. Well, thank you everybody for your time. Yeah, we'll converse more about this in GitHub, and we also have a libp2p call on Monday. So if there's things that we really need to talk about synchronously, we can do it then. So have a good day, everyone, or night.
Bye.
Bye bye.